All right, I want you to follow along. If you plan on making one of these and you want to do it right now, just follow along, pause the video when you need. I'm going to give you all the dimensions right here so that you can duplicate what I'm about to make. You're going to want some chipboard. This is, I forget the name brand. It's the kind that Bill or Wylock recommends. It's thin cardboard. You can get it in bundles off of Amazon, but really any thin cardboard, even like a cereal box cardboard, will work. And what you want to do is I want you to make a 1.5 inch mark on both ends. You're going to need to make 3.5 inch cuts of these in just a moment. So it's got to be long enough to make more than 7 inches. So what I'm going to do, I've made my marks at 1.5, and go ahead and cut that. Now listen, you do not have to be super exact with this. Just try and try for accuracy. But if you're just a little bit off, it's not a big deal. There's a lot of places during this build where you're going to be able to cover up mistakes or things when they're not exactly the right length. So the next thing I want you to do is take that strip that's 1.5 inch thick and cut two 3.5 inch boxes or rectangles. So mark it at 3.5 and then mark it at 7. Then flip your T-square over, and if you don't have one, just get a ruler. But I'm telling you, the T-square, not T-square, but these square rulers here are really helpful. So now I've got 2 of these, and I want to go ahead and what I'm going to do in some cases, I just draw the line. If it's a real long cut, I'll use my blade, and if it's a real short cut, I use my scissors. And just cut both of those. I always try to cut on the right of the line, but you can do it however you want. These are just about the same. There's a little bit they're a little bit off, and what you can do is you could hold them together, square them on one end, and then just use your scissors to clean them up so that they're exactly the same length. Again, they don't have to be perfect, just as near as you can. Next thing I want you to do is I want you to take both pieces. Actually, you can just do this on one. Trust me. So make a 1 inch mark from each side. So 3.5 minus, that'd be the 2.5. And then flip it over and do the 1 inch and an inch from both sides. So 1, 1, 1, 1. And then this is 1.5 in here. Okay. Then turn the piece. This is 1.5 wide. I want you to come in 1/2 from one side and 1/2 from the other. So this is 1.5. So each one of these is 1/2. Make your 2 marks right there so that you divide this into 3 parts. 1/2, 1/2, 1/2. Do it on both sides. Now you can use your blade if you want, but what I want you to do is I want you to cut from the 1/2 to the 1 inch mark. You can even draw these if you like. That's what I'm going to do here, just so you can see what I'm talking about. What we're going to do is we're going to cut these so that they have a beveled edge. See what I'm talking about there? And again, you don't have to be exact, but try to be close. What I do is you can normally just with your scissors, you can take one line, line it up with the other point, and just make a nice straight cut. Now I said you only need to do this on one because you may be able to guess what I'm going to do here. Just square it up on your second piece, pinch it really good so the pieces don't move, and then just use the edge as a guide to trim the other one to an exact match. Like that. Now you've got 2 pieces. Now these don't matter. They're both sides. It doesn't matter which is the front or the back. So what you're going to do is go ahead and set these aside for now. We're going to use these in just a moment. What we're going to do, just to give you an idea, we're going to cut pieces that are going to, one of these is going to go in the front and one is going to go in the back like this. Can't even hold them right, like this. And you're going to have 4.5 inch pieces that go all the way around it. So the easiest way to do this is to just go ahead and cut yourself a 4.5 inch wide piece. So I'm marking this at 4.5. Mark this at 4.5. And I'm not going to cut this with scissors. I'm going to use a blade for this. So go ahead and, as accurate as you can, make those marks and then use your blade to cut that chipboard. Now I have a 4.5 inch wide piece here. Good. And listen, you can write on this chipboard. You're going to be painting this later, so go ahead and write on it. If it helps you stay sort of keep your mind focused on what your measurements are and stuff. So I've got a 4.5 inch wide piece here. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take this piece and you're going to measure this right here, this top edge, just this piece right here. Measure that. It should be 1.5, but it might be a little off depending on your cut. You're going to do the same for this bottom edge and the side edges. Don't worry about the angled pieces yet. Just cut 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're going to cut those. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make 1, and I said it's between 3/8, 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3, and so I'm just going to make a halfway mark there. And you don't have to be exact here. I mean, obviously, you don't want to underdo it. It's easier to overestimate how much you need than to underestimate it, because you can always trim away extra. So I'm gonna draw a line here, and I always draw on this. Like I've got 2 tick marks here. I try to give, when I put my pen, I put the ruler on the opposite side of where the ink is going to be to make up for the thickness of the pen. It's just a little thing, but you can do it. And then remember, I always cut on the far side of the line. If I'm using this piece, I'm cutting on this side of the line. Like exaggeration would be here. But I'm going to sneak up on that line where I can see the blue line, and I'm just going to cut across it as best I can, like that. And if you look real carefully, you can see that I've still got some blue on this edge. So that means I was cutting on this side of the line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some hot glue, and I'm going to stick it here. And then on the other piece, I'm going to do it on the other side. These are going to be glued on top of these pieces. Not on the inside, like this, where you can see this edge, but they're going to be glued on top of that edge. And be consistent. Do that all the way around on both sides. What I'm going to do is just run a little bit of glue along this edge. Now here's a little trick. You can take it and sort of line it up, and then like this, and then bend it to get a nice, clean, flush edge here. You can, what they call, sneak up on it. You start near it, and then before the glue cools, you sort of move the chipboard so it gets in there. And what it does, it gives you this nice, clean edge here. Now what I'm going to do is, remember, we're gluing it on top. So I'm going to take this piece, put a bead of glue here, and then sneak up on it. I'm going to take this, put it there, and then bend it a little bit, and then just try to, before the glue cools, get it there. So that's pretty good. If it's a little over, or if you have excess squeeze out, not a big deal. Once the glue cools really well, you can always take your blade and sort of go in and trim off any extra glue. So we're going to do this all the way around. So I need to cut another one of these pieces to go here, some thinner ones to go here, and we'll get to the angled edges in just a moment. But I'm going to go into time lapse so that you don't have to hear me do all 4 edges. So just follow along, do this, and then the 2 thin edges. Remember, they're 4.5 inches long, and you're going to cut them to the length or the width here. I'm going to stop the time lapse here and do one extra part that I forgot to mention to you. Right now, this is very fragile. See how I can squeeze it and there's nothing in here? What I'm going to do is, we know the height of this piece in the center was 1.5. So all you've got to do is cut a 1.5 inch piece, and you should have some left over from that long piece that we cut. Remember, it was 3.5 and 3.5 for 7. And if you used a 12-inch piece like I did, you'll have a 5-inch piece left over. And what I want to do is I want to cut a piece that I'm going to glue in there for strength. And I know that this piece is 1.5. I could actually just eyeball it here. I'm gonna do it a little less than the edge. I'm just cutting it a little shy of 1.5, and I'll use my scissors to just make that cut. And this piece is going to be glued in here like that, just for strength. So run a little bead on one side, run a little bead on the other, and you can insert it at an angle just to get it in there at first, and then straighten it up. So I'm going to come in at an angle, and then I'm going to rotate this piece up and do like that. Now, I should have done it in the center, but it doesn't really matter. Just one's all you need, but you could do another one here. As a matter of fact, I am going to do another one. I'll do another one just to show you. And I'll cut it again. Apply some glue along one edge, along the other bottom edge. And then remember, go in at an angle and then tip it up. And I'm just trying to, there you go, just like that. All right, so now you have this structure. Now we need to fill in these pieces right here. Now, what you can do, and this is where I was telling you to sneak up on things, what you want to do is you want to measure the distance between the edge of this long strip and this top strip. And remember, there's a thickness here, so you've got to account for that. If I were to do just a straight, assuming these were as thin as paper, it would be like 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/4. But I'm going to have to allow for a little, the angle of this piece kind of fit in there kind of nice. So it's a little less than 1 1/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it at 1 1/4, and then I'll trim away. If I find that it doesn't fit right, I can take my blade or my scissors and I can make very thin slices until it drops in there and fits perfect. So there is a little bit of a gap here, so watch this. I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to squeeze just a little bit down in there. I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to run my finger just to take the excess off, let it cool down first. That lets it cool down, and what it does, it forces that glue down in the gap. It did most of it. I'm going to do a little bit more. All right, go ahead and set this piece aside. We'll be coming back to this a little bit later. All right, the next measurement you're going to want to make is a 6.5 inch wide piece. So this is a 12 by 12, so it's going to be a little more than half of this. So 6.5 by 6.5. Just make your mark, and it doesn't have to be exact. Again, I'm going to keep repeating that, but obviously you want to get as close as possible. 6.5 down here and 6 down here is not going to cut it. But if it's within like a 1/16 of an inch or so, you should be okay. As we're going to be covering this thing with a lot of extra greebles, you're going to discover that there's a lot of forgiveness with inaccurate cuts because you're going to be covering them up. All right, now this is 6.5 wide. Okay, 6.5 wide. Now what I want you to do is I want you to, you're going to make 1.5 inch increments, and you're going to make 3 of them. And you can do that from either end. I'm going to do it from this end, so I'll remember that this piece is 6.5. So I'm going to make a mark at 1.5, 3, and 4.5, and then I'm going to make another one at 6. Sorry, so make 4 marks. you're going to have a piece that is 6 inches long this way. And then flip the ruler over and make those marks again. 1.5, 3, 4.5, and 6. Do not cut these lines. Only cut the 6-inch mark, that the last one that you made at 6 inches. So you're going to have a 6.5-inch box by a 6-inch box. Let me go ahead and cut this with I probably would cut this with my scissors, but I'm worried it might not be as accurate, so I'm going to cut it with a blade. All right, so here we go. 6.5 this way. And then I've got 1.5-inch marks running down the side here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to line up those marks on opposite sides, and you're going to make a scoring cut. You're going to use your blade. This is one of those where you just sort of got to practice. I can't really tell. You're not cutting all the way through the cardboard. You want to cut about halfway. And this is thin, so it's like, well, how do I cut halfway through it? It's a feel kind of thing. I just usually run my blade a couple times without putting hard force down, and then I test it. See how it's starting to break over? There we go. If it still gives you resistance, give it one slight more cut or trim inside there. Don't go too deep, but just play it by ear. And here's the best part. If you make a mistake, it's chipboard, it's cardboard. You can do it again. So I'm going to go 1, 2. I was not pushing down all the way through. And there, I got one more. And now I want to do one more. And there. Now what I'm making is a square tube. We're going to reinforce this just like we did this piece. We're going to put something inside this that will help. So what I want to do is I want to cut a 1.5. Actually, this is 6. So I want to cut this way. That's right. 6.5 this way. I'm going to cut a 1.5, make a 1.5 and a 1.5, and I'm probably going to trim this just a bit shy, like not 1.5, but maybe 1 3/8, or even maybe, I don't know. You got to allow for the glue. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this with the scissors because I don't care if this is exact. So I'm going to take this, and this is going to be inserted in here like so and glued in so that it forms so it strengthens it from the inside like that, okay? So you can see how I'm going to do this. I'm going to glue it here first. I'm going to glue it along this edge. So I'm going to apply glue along one whole edge. And you want to try to be, it doesn't have to be perfectly vertical. You can fix that later. But I want to go ahead and glue it down. And I'm trying to, center it in the tube. It doesn't have to be exact. It does not have to be exact. Now, you can probably guess. I'm going to put glue on this edge. I'm going to fold this over, and I'm going to hold it to it like that, just so it holds it nice and tight. Now, I can tell you right now, I cut it too long because it's not folding up. So all I have to do is take my scissors and just trim it just a little bit, not much. And again, this is one of those that you just sort of comes with practice. You sort of figure out that it's not going to fit. Trim off a little bit, and there we go. I've got like a perfect fit there. So I'm going to run a long bead down here. Could you skip this step? Sure could, but your tube is going to be sort of weak. So you want to be careful. All right, so fold it all together, put it flat against the surface, and then try to hold it and press it. You can look around to the other side. I'm doing it on both sides, okay? I'm just trying to get it as centered as possible. This is still loose. I got one side that is still loose, and that's okay. That's what you want. All right, so this should be all nice and strong. Now, what you can do, you don't have to. You could run a bead of glue. If you really are nervous, you could run a bead of glue down here on the inside to just strengthen it a little bit. But it should be pretty good. Now the final step here is we're going to close this up, but I don't want like a strange square shape. If I put it too far over, this side's going to look like it's angled. But there's a lot of forgiveness here, trust me. So because I've done this right, it looks pretty good. When I glue it all together, you can kind of see it's close enough to perfect. Not perfect, but close enough. So now to finish this off, I am going to run a bead of glue down this edge. And don't skimp on the glue here. You do not want, this is the main body of the ship, and you do not want this to be weak. What I do is after the glue cools for a few seconds, I run my finger and get any excess off. And what you end up with is a nice, strong tube. Now, if you step on it, it's going to crush. This is cardboard. But what I'm saying is by that, just handling it, if you hand this to somebody, if they're not going really crazy, it's sturdy. It's not gonna collapse. All right, set this part aside. That's part 2. Let's do the next piece. Okay, this next piece we're going to make, actually we're going to make 2 of them. It's very similar to how we did this, all right? Notice this is sort of squished. We're going to make one that's just a little bit thicker, but it's going to work the exact same way. You're going to make 2 ends, and then you're going to cut a bunch of side pieces that glue together to go around them. It's going to have a very similar shape to this, but it's going to be a bit wider. Now here's the measurements you want to start with. So if you're making this as we go along, I'll give you the measurements. You're going to want to cut a 3-inch wide slip. So go ahead and cut 3 inches. And by the way, it's going to be by 2, so you're going to need at least 4 inches this way and however much this way. But this is going to be 3 inches, and you need at least 4 in the other direction. All right. So let's go ahead and cut this. And you're going to do this. This procedure is going to make one of the engines. You're going to do this twice. So I'm just doing it once here, and then you're going to have to do it again. So this piece right here is going to give you the front and the back, like this, of one engine. So you're going to do this again. So if you want, you could go ahead and do it at the exact same time, but in order to save time on the video, I'm just going to make one, and then I'll make the other one off camera. It's 3 inches this way, and then what we're going to do is we're going to cut 2 and then 4. And by the way, save these little cutoffs. They will come in handy at various times when you need to add some greebles in the next video. Now remember how we did the bevels or the angled sides on this. So let me cut out both of these, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. And remember, all you've got to do is do it on one, and then you could use it as a template for the other one. So these 2 pieces may not be, well, that's pretty good. They are pretty good. All right, take one, and from the long side, which is the 3-inch side, make a mark at the 1/2 inch from this side and 1/2 inch from this side. Flip it over and do it on the bottom, 1/2, 1/2. And then from the short side, which is the 2-inch, I want you to come in 3/4 from one side and 3/4 from the other. And that's going to leave a 1/2 inch in the center here. 3/4, 1/2, 3/4. And do that on both sides so that you have your marks. So come in 3/4, 3/4, and then 1/2 in the center. And then again, what you're going to do, and I'm not going to draw the lines here, I just put my scissors at one point and I angle it towards that other dot and I just cut. And if it's, I mean, you could draw a line to cut across if you really need that, but I usually am pretty good about, it's just such a short cut that I can do that. And there you go. You're going to make 4 of these, okay? One, you're going to have 2 engines, front and back, front and back. So I'm just making 1 this time. Put this piece on there. Now, if you're making them at the same time, I recommend that you label them like left engine, right engine, because what I'm doing here, since I'm using 1 as a template, these are a matching pair. You don't want to get your pairs mixed up. If I was doing both of these at the same time, I would label this L1, L2, R1, R2. But since I'm only doing 1 here, I don't have to do that. But it just, because think about it, if I use this to cut this as a template, and I have another one and I cut it for the template, and then these get mixed up, I might get a left and a right, and they may not have the exact same angles. And it's going to cause it to be a little wonky looking. Now that I know these match, I'm going to go front and that's the top. All right, so it's going to be like front and the top, and then I'm going to put back and the top like that, so that I know that these go like this, so that all the cuts match up. Does that make sense? I should have done that on this one. I forgot to tell you that part. Hopefully you're watching this entire video before you actually sit down and do this. But if you didn't do it on this one, no big deal, because you're just doing the one and they should be close enough. But I've labeled front, top, back, top, so that I know that the orientation is like this. All right. Now, again, we need to cut the, we need to cut the pieces that are going to be glued across here to make the sides. So what you want to do is take a piece of chipboard and cut yourself a long strip of 2.5-inch wide chipboard. And I'm using scrap here, but I could go get another piece and use a 12-inch piece. But I'm making just one here. If I was making two, I might try to use a longer piece. Draw that line, or actually cut it. I'm not going to draw it. I'm just going to trim it. And remember, this is 2.5 inches deep. So it's going to be like, it's 2.5 this way. So it's going to be cut to this like that. Okay, can you see that? It's going to go across the top here. So again, remember, I'm going to measure this edge, and we know it should be 2 inches. It's right at 2 inches. And I'm going to need 2 of those for this one single engine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 2 and 4. I'm going to flip this over. 2 and 4. And remember, this should be 2.5 inches. It is. I'm going to write it down here for you. 2.5 inches this way, and then 2 inches, 2 inches. Let me cut this, and then I'll be able to show you the actual measurements. You can freeze frame it, or I may freeze frame it for you. All right. You're not trimming any angles off these pieces. These are just rectangles. So there you go. 2.5 by 2. And this is going to glue on the front and then the back. And here's the first time you do this. This is where you got to label front and back. Make sure the arrows are in the same position. So I'm going to put them here so I don't make this mistake. And I'm going to glue this on top. I have to get another glue stick in just a second. And then I'm going to sneak up on it. Like that. Just sort of pull the glue to where I get that nice flush edge. I'm really only concerned about getting one nice clean edge. That'll probably be the front of the ship. I often don't care what the rear looks like, but somebody's going to have to look at it. Maybe your opponent. So you want to be, definitely be as, accurate as you can, but you don't have to go crazy. All right, I'm putting glue on the top edge. Remember, back, top, and that's going to match up to here. It's very cold in my basement right now, so the hot glue is cooling very, very fast. So I'm happy about that. Here's my other piece, and I'm going to do that down here. I'm going to go ahead and run both beads. And I think at this point you probably get the general idea. We're going to go all the way around, cutting different thicknesses to match up with what I need to go all the way around this thing. Now, as before, we want to insert something into this piece so that it does not, so it's weak, not weak, it's strong. There we go, just like that. Do you have to do this part? No, you don't. But again, it will make your model a little stronger. All right, I'm going to time lapse this next part, and if you watch, you'll see. I'm just going to go side, side, and then panels all the way around, and you're going to make 2 of these. All right, for this next part, I want you to cut out two 3.5 by 2.5 inch squares, or rectangles, excuse me. And they need to be fairly accurate. And if this is going to make a side wing, so if you want to do these at the same time, you're going to need 4 of these. I'm just making one right now so you can see it. But 3.5 by 2.5. So let me cut this. This is 3.5 this way. Let me label it. 3.5. And then I need 2.5. And unfortunately, this piece was not quite 5 inches, so I can't make 2 of them here. I'll have to do another one. So 3.5 by 2.5. And these are probably the least, I won't say the least accurate, but they're the ones you don't have to be too crazy about. But try to make the left wing and the right wing parts match. Remember, you're going to have 2 of these per wing. So here is the 3.5 by 2.5. You're gonna want 2 of these to make 1 wing. So if you want to make both wings now, go ahead and make 4 of these pieces. And it's pretty simple to just use them as a template. I'm gonna put this one on here, and I'm gonna trim off. I'm gonna trim it flush, and then I'll have 2 pieces that are pretty much identical. All right, so 3.5 by 2.5, and you're going to need 2 of those. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to label this so you'll see this. You want the long side running horizontal, or I guess perpendicular to you. 3.5, and then from the bottom edge of the 2.5 inch sides, I want you to make a mark at 1 inch on each side. Don't cut this. Just draw a line. So do that, and then draw a line. Like that. And that is a 1 inch high, 1 inch from the, I shouldn't have done that, but well, 1 inch from the bottom here. This is 3.5 this way, 2.5 this way, and 1 inch from the bottom. Go ahead and do that. From the left side, I now want you to make a 3/4 inch mark from this side, and coming in from this way, make a 1/2 inch mark, which is, unfortunately, it's already there. Like that. So this is 3/4 and 1/2. All right. So 3.5 this way, 2.5 this way. From this side, come in 1/2. From this side, come in 3/4 and make a little mark. What you're going to do is you're going to put your scissors on that 1 inch line and cut a diagonal to the mark you made. So I'm doing one to the 3/4 like that, and then I'm doing one to the 1/2 inch like that. So these angles are not the same. And then finally, from this 1 inch line, I want you to come in 1.5 inches. So draw a line up here, 1.5. Come down and square this up and draw a 1.5 inch line. Draw a vertical line straight down. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut out this square. So cut to where it meets that 1 inch line. And then over here, cut it this way. And what you're going to be left with, you can use your blade to trim out any little extra cardboard tear out. You're going to be left with a piece like this. So 3.5 inches this way, 2.5 this way. You drew a line up 1 inch. You came in this way 1/2 inch, this way 3/4. Cut those angles. And then from this tip, you went in 1.5 inches and cut this square out. So you're going to do this. You're going to need 4 of these pieces. So put the bottom edge flush and this edge, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it as best I can. I'll have to cut that square separately. So and as you can see, this is where I told you, it doesn't have to be super exact, but of course you want to try and be, as close as you can. So what you can do is, for some of these inside cuts, draw a line and then cut on the inside of that line, or the back side of it. So let's do that. And this is these wings are going to be somewhat forgiving because we're going to be putting a lot of greebles on them. So there we go. We got a matching set here. All right, and remember, just like we did with this, where we wanted the sides to, you know, make the cuts match, right? Now with this, it's kind of easy to keep them because there's only, these angles are different. So be sure to label one top. This will be the top, and then of course the other one is the bottom. And you're going to want to label them left and right if you're doing them at the exact same time. We're going to do a 3/4 inch strip of chipboard that's going to go all the way around. So these two pieces are going to come together like this, and you're going to go all the way around it with a 3¼ inch wide piece of chipboard. So you're going to need a bunch of this, so go ahead and maybe cut 2 or 3. I'm going to go 3/4 and then 1½. Come back down here, do 3¼ and 1½. And that'll probably give me enough to do 1 wing. And you'll want to do 2 wings before we finish up this project, or at least part 1 of this project. There you go, 1 wing done. Do a second one, and when you're done with the second one and you've got your 2 engines and everything, come back and we are going to glue this thing together and have the skeleton of our ship ready to go. Detached. You should have 2 wings, 2 engines, the body, and the cockpit up here. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start gluing all this together, and I want you to start by gluing a wing to the engine, and you're going to glue it so that the bottom of the wing is flush with the back. Let me see if I can show you this, like that. You want it flush here with the back, and then all the way down at this where this angle meets right there. So I'm just going to take some glue, and I'm going to put it on there, flush. I want to make sure it's straight this way and there, and that it will be the, for me, that's my left wing. And then for this one, I'm going to glue it here, flush with the, and again, you know, don't worry if everything looks a little off. When you see the skeleton here, you're gonna freak, because there's gonna be some uneven stuff, but you can fix a lot of that during the next phase, which is where we're gonna start adding detail and paneling and stuff like that. All right, so now you have your wing and your 2 engines. So the centerpiece, just so you know, let me spin the engines around here so you're looking at it from the back. Okay, so you're looking at it from the back. This piece, the main body, is going to be glued between the 2 engines, and it's also going to be glued flush and at this bottom edge right here, okay? Just like that, to match the wing. See that? So, but this one is going to cover almost the entire side of the engine, so get a good bit of glue on there because you want it to hold really, really good, and then glue it on there. And it doesn't matter whether you glue it with the support going this way or vertical. It doesn't matter. And get it on there and let that glue dry really, or cool. I'm squeezing it together because there was a gap. I want that hot glue to get a good connection to the engine and the main body. All right, now this one, same way. It's going to be glued just like that. So I'm going to put the glue. I guess I could put the glue on this since I know how far to go up and down. All right, there we go. This one is going to go just like that. And I'm looking at it from all angles, just making sure that everything's lined up. and it appears to be. It's got a very X-Wing-like look, doesn't it? That's not what I was going for, but that just sort of happened. That's sort of how it turned out. All right, so there you go, just like that. Now the next thing, and by the way, this thing rests on the bottom of the engines, this 1/2 inch strip. That's how it's resting. And later we are going to add like maybe probably some landing gear and stuff. But I want you to notice that this 1.5 inch square is going to match up to this. You're not going to glue this piece flush with the bottoms here. This isn't going to be resting on the ground. It's going to be glued top and bottom flush with the tube. So for this, I'm going to put a good big bit of glue all the way around, not skimping on the glue. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to line it up with the top and the bottom. I'm looking all around, make sure that everything's flush. It is there, it is there. Put a little pressure on the top, not too much, just to make sure it gets a good connection. And there you go. That is the skeleton of our ship. Now, if you push on the back here, it's going to rock up. That's because there is about a 1/2 inch gap beneath the cockpit that's not accounted for. We'll take care of that later. There you go. That is it. If you have been following along and you have made one of these, congratulate yourself. This is probably one of my most favorite ways to build things with chipboard, is just creating an internal structure first and then doing the outside stuff. Now, before I finish, I'm probably going to go ahead right now and cut me a nice 1.5 inch piece to seal that rear up there. Matter of fact, well, I don't know. You want to make sure you get the right, there we go, that'll work. Just gonna, and it doesn't have to be exact. You just want to cover it. And because we are going to be gluing things to it as well. All right, I'm just going to cut that manually. Make sure it goes that way, and then of course I need to trim a little bit off this. Trim and fit, trim and fit. That's the secret. All right, there we go. So let me go ahead and add that, and we're going to call this skeleton project finished. I hope you're enjoying this. Part 2 will be up very soon, and in part 2 we're going to start adding details that are going to make your ship just start looking really good. You're going to be really anxious to paint it. I mean, you're going to have to do some self-control, because there's quite a bit to do before we get to the painting stage. But there you go. One ship ready to go. All right, this is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer. I do appreciate you guys joining me. I hope you're enjoying these crafts. I have been away for a while from crafting, and I'm back into it. And I didn't forget how much I enjoyed it, but now I'm really realizing how much I really do enjoy this. If you care to, I would love to have you as a patron of my channel. It's just $1 a month, and what it's going to give you access to is lots of videos, game playthroughs, free PDFs, things that you can access through Patreon, through my Patreon account, that aren't available anywhere else. I have a lot of playthroughs and videos that are not going to be made available to the general public. The other thing is you're going to get early access. So, for example, all my patrons who are watching this right now, this is probably, if you're watching this when it just released, it's not released on YouTube yet. If you're watching this on YouTube, just be aware that this has been available for well over a week or two to my patrons. Some videos I release in a week, some I release in 2 or 3 weeks. It really depends on my work schedule and other stuff like that. So if you want to be guaranteed to always be able to get to my latest videos without having any wait, please consider becoming a patron. Again, it's just $1 a month, and it definitely helps me continue to keep making craft videos, playthrough videos, and all the other crazy stuff I do. All right, enjoy your model. Do a few pew-pews and fly around, show your spouse, and let them be wowed at your crafting skill, and we'll be back with another video to get this thing looking like a true ship. Everybody, take care.